Okay, so that's the switching taken care of, and as you can see, I've just off the video I've just done the same for both sides. So I've got the switch, switch to IK, switch back to FK, and that side is on FK, switch to IK, back to FK. Okay, so that's the enum switching, nice and elegant in your rigs. The colorblend nodes act as the switch for each joint, and so I know it's functionally it's the joint chain is switching between IK and FK. So the last on the list then is setting up, we've got the FK joints. Last on the list is setting up the IK. So as you can see, it's set to FK, so I've got the FK controls, so I can do the elbow, and moving that control moves the hands because that joint chain is switched to it. So switch off it and it goes back to IK. Okay, and because these are just handles for the joints, I'm only doing it on FK because that deals with rotations, and when you zero everything out, if you set your joints up correctly, then it goes back to default. Okay, let's have a look at the IK. So I'm going to do it for one side, and then that will be it, and you can do the other side. Okay, so just bringing up the outliner, I'm just going to temporarily hide the actual joint chain. I'm going to hide the FK chain. So this is now back to the IK, and to stop any confusion I'm just going to delete this. Okay, so let's set up an IK. It's very similar to how we set up the legs. In fact, not much changing. The only niggly thing is setting up the proper elbow, because you can see, because it was modelled in the A pose, we just have to work out what the plane of the arm is to get the decent elbow, and I'll show you a good technique to do that. So first of all, let's have a look at the controls, and for the sake of what's a good one? Okay, let's have a cross. And so it just differentiates it between the circle of the FK, so visually we know it's different. I will create a group node, because when I put it into position, that group node is going to absorb the translations and rotations. Create it, and there we have it. Okay, so I'm going to call that curve, rig underscore hand underscore IK left CTRL, and always the group is exactly what the control's called, but with underscore group on the end. Okay. Don't forget, all along the way, save your iterations. So after you've done sections of your rig, then you can keep saving so that you know that you can always go back to it. Okay. So for temporary placement, I'm going to use a parent constraint. I often use parent constraints for alignment. So I'm going to select the hand, IK, select the control group, and do a parent constraint. I don't want to maintain offset, I want it to actually align, and click on add. And there you go, it's now aligned. You can see under the group I've got the parent constraint. I just used it for alignment, so delete it. Okay, so as you can see, the group is absorbing all the translations and rotations, so that when I select the control, it's zeroed out. And then lastly, control verts of your curve, select all, and I am going to just make sure the curve sort of sits quite nicely. Select all again and just scale it up. And because I'm doing that on the curve, I'm not changing pivot point or anything like that. Okay, so that's the control. First of all, we need to do the IK handles, and if you remember, the first one, the main IK, will be just like from thigh to ankle. This will be from upper arm to hand, and that will be a rotate plane because we want an elbow, we want that twist, and then we'll do one single chain from the hand to the hand end. Okay. Let me minimize that. So skeleton, IK handle, we want the rotate plane, and that goes from upper arm to hand, and just bring up. Okay, so that's called the IK handle 1. Rig underscore hand underscore left IKH, and let's create another one. Skeleton IK handle. This time make it sure it's a single chain, and from the hand to the hand end. Okay. Bring up the outliner, and this will be rig underscore hand end underscore left IK handle. Okay. So I'm going to group them together, very much like I did the foot. The pivot point is right down here, so I want the pivot point to be at the hand because that will then deal with the correct rotations. So let's just change the pivot and snap it there. Okay, and call this rig underscore hand underscore IK. Let's call it left underscore IK handle group. Alright, so with the groups pivot in the right place, then that will deal with the IK movement, okay, and it will also deal with the rotation. Alright. And let's just restore that back to 0. Okay, there we go. That is such a warning, is just make sure that when you're testing anything you restore it back to default, otherwise you'll start rigging in some weird pose. And then lastly, we can take the IK handle group and parent it under the control. There we go. Okay, so you can see that the control has the group underneath it. And that way, because we align the control, it means that we get we can rotate the hand, and we can translate it as well. Okay. And then we can also zero everything out, and it behaves, resets it back to default. So looking good so far. Okay, we need an elbow, and if I just put the elbow sort of straight back, when I set the pole vector, the arm will kind of snap to that position. So I need to find out, just like I did for the locator, I need to find out what plane it's on. Okay, and the easiest way to do that is through a locator again. So I'm just going to create a locator, set the local scale to 5. Okay, now I'm going to sit initially that locator to be roughly halfway down. So I'm going to point constrain it to the upper arm and the hand. If I constrain it to both, it will sit halfway between them. Okay. Select the hand, select the shift select the upper arm. So the drivers first, and then shift select the locator, constrain point. I don't want to maintain offset, and apply. Okay. So that is now sitting halfway between. Okay. And as you can see, that's the point constraint. So I can now delete that. It was just there to place the locator. Now that it's in the middle, I can aim it at the elbow, and that will give me the right plane. I can shoot the locator out once I've aligned it, and that's where I'll put the pole vector. Okay. So let's say, for example, I'm going to aim the x-axis, and I'm going to aim it at this guy, the elbow. Yep. And also, once I aim it, the x at that, I want the y to point up at this guy as well. So rather than seeing up, I want this object to be up. And you'll see how that works shortly. So that's what I'm going to aim at. So that's the parent first for the aim constraint, then the locator. Constrain aim. The aim vector is the x, so make sure that's 1 and turn z off. So I'm going to aim the x-axis. The up vector is y, but the world up type is object. Okay, and what is the object that the up vector y is going to point at? Well, it is the upper arm. So just copy that and paste it there. Just go back and select the order that you constrain at. So when I click apply, okay, you can see that the x-axis is pointing at the elbow and the y-axis is pointing at the upper arm. So that's the up vector is pointing at the object, which is the upper arm. Okay, so aim constraints are very, very powerful. You don't just have to have seen up. I've deleted the constraint, so now if I just drag the elbow, it will go through, if I just drag the locator, it will go through the elbow, and literally I can keep it in the Y plane as well, because it will always be in the right plane to the arm, as you can see, and then I've got a pretty decent position for the elbow. Okay. So that's a good way of getting a good alignment. Okay. Right. KK controls. Again, same for the elbows. I'll give it. I don't want to group. I'll just create that one. I will call it rig underscore elbow underscore IK left control, and I can v-snap it to that locator. Right. Delete the locator. I don't need that anymore. Scale the control up so it's nice and visible, and freeze your transforms. Okay. Now, if you didn't know, if you are using the KK control, it's got a mirror function. So I can copy it in the X and it mirrors it across, and I've got exactly the same. So that's really useful, saves you having to set that locator up twice. Okay. And now it's the pole vector of this rotate plane IK, and if you remember, that's under the group and it's called hand left. Okay. So driver first, hand left IK handle, and we just go constrain pole vector, and the arm won't snap because to some weird position because I've aligned it properly. And there we go. Okay, so that's all working quite nicely. Okay, elbow, really nice. Okay, zero it out. And zero that out. Okay, now let's test everything. So my switch is FK, so I can start using those controls. Or if I switch it over to IK, I can start using those controls. Okay, and that's a really nice, elegant switching system. Okay, and so switch between them, and it's all working quite nicely. Okay, so you can do the same for the other side, and I'll not do the other side in a video. Just follow these steps and you'll be fine, and then I'll just look at wrapping things up right at the end. Okay.